the historic bells of Albany City Hall. Welcome to Albany Street, a public affairs presentation of Albany Broadcasting.
Sunday morning, welcome to Albany Street. I'm Joe Condon. Big shout out to everybody on the Northway of Route 9 right now, headed up to breakfast at the track at Saratoga. Today it's the running of the Shoe-V at Saratoga, and our guest this morning, she may be heading to Saratoga after being on the air with me. We're delighted to have with us Alicia Purdy, who is the Republican conservative candidate for mayor in the city of Albany. Alicia, thank you for joining us this morning.
I'm so glad to be here, Joe.
Now, have you been up to Saratoga yet?
I have not been up to Saratoga yet. I hear it's crowded this time of year.
Yes, definitely. And compared to what, the way the situation was last year without fans, it's nice to see that fans can go again this year, isn't it?
Yes, I actually thought I saw on the news people were running at Saratoga, and I said, was there a fire or something? And they said, no, they're running in there.
That's right. That's the 7 o'clock to get the proper picnic table for the day. Alicia Purdy, Republican and conservative candidate for mayor in the city of Albany. Tell us about yourself. We spoke on the phone recently, and you said that you grew up down in Greenville?
I did. I grew up in a little town called Greenville. Our lives and our businesses have always been in Albany, but my dad is actually a minister, and he had a little church out in Greene County. That's where I graduated high school, and I went to high school at a school my dad started and ran, and I graduated in a class of 5 girls, and I was the valedictorian of the 5 girls. I'll just own the valedictorian title, though. We won't talk about the 5 girls. And after high school, I went and got my degree and moved into the city of Albany. But Greenville it gave me some really solid roots. I can't begrudge that I grew up in a little town.
Is it? Well, Greenville's a lovely place. Isn't there a big reservoir down there, too?
On the way out there is the Alcove Reservoir, which feeds the water supply to the city of Albany.
Now, Alicia Purdy is also a Capital Region broadcaster on WHAZ Radio in Troy, which simulcasts on 3 other radio stations in New York State and 1 station in the state of Vermont. Guess your simulcast is called the Alive Radio Network, right? It
is. It is now expanded large enough to be a radio network.
And also, you worked with a friend of mine who has passed away, Betty Flood, with the Collier News Service, and also you've been managing editor of several publishing companies. What made you decide to run for mayor of the city of Albany with all this going on?
That's an excellent question. So I will tell you, when I was early on in my journalism career, right after my time with Betty Flood at Collier News Service, actually, I had decided, that was in New York State Assembly in that press corps area, and Fred Dicker was there. I had decided after my stint with Betty that I wanted to do something a little bit different than we were doing there. And I was a single mom at the time, and I decided to pursue something that was actually more online. And it was very new. This is 2004. It was a really new thing to be working at home and working online. And I had a good resume, and I found a man who had started a company where he was trying to become sort of like the Associated Press, but on a smaller scale. So news aggregation, collecting from wires around the world. And he needed somebody to manage his company and to grow it. And we had 3 employees. When I left, we had 25 employees from around the globe collecting news. And it was there we focused a lot on government and politics. And we would tussle back and forth, that boss and I would. He was really a mentor to me, even though we were really opposite ends politically. And he was very good to me, though. And so he had said to me after one of our big arguments one day, he said to me, Alicia, I was about 25, 26, and he said, you have so many big ideas. Oh, you think you can do, young enough with all the energy. And he said, if you really want the world to change, you'll run for office. He said, that is really the way that the world changes. And it inspired me in the moment. I had some other things I needed to walk through in my life, especially as a journalist. And it really never left my mind because I do want the world to change. And I started to pay attention. It really woke something in me. And here I am.
Now, you indicated that you are running as the people's mayor. What does that mean?
The people's mayor is a really specifically coined phrase that I'm using because one of the most novel approaches that I think we just don't see anymore, especially in the city of Albany, is that the way that we approach governance in Albany and have for so long is that people are the problem. People are criminals. People are poor. People have needs. And there's always a problem because of people. As the people's mayor, everything is shifted because I truly believe that people are the solution. That when people come together and people begin to take care of what's right in front of them, when you can reach hearts of people, that's when things change. I just don't think there's enough money in the world. I don't think there are enough. And I think history has proven this. There's not enough programs in the world. There aren't enough things in the world. Really, it's people. So when I call myself the people's mayor, it's because my heart is to transform the city of Albany through its people. rather than through the programs in the city and the infrastructure. I really want to reach people, and that could be any people. That's not just that's the everyday person, to a landowner, to a business developer, to somebody who has a small business. Everybody has something. They have a stake in the game in the city of Albany, and I really believe that reaching people and being the mayor of the people, not of a city, of people in a city, is actually a transformative idea. And so it's my approach, and that's why I'm calling myself the people's mayor.
It sounds like it's almost a psychological adjustment in the city of Albany that you want to make.
I think it's what we need, and I think that it's long overdue that people realize who a mayor is, what a mayor should do, and really how governance should be in the city of Albany, that really you're not over people so much. I mean, there's a time and place for that, but you're really not over people so much as you come alongside them.
Program is Albany Street. It's a Sunday morning. I'm Joe Condon. We are delighted to have with us Alicia Purdy, who is the Republican and conservative candidate for mayor in the city of Albany. In conversations that you and I have had, and also seen you on television and read about this in the newspaper, that you're concerned about crime in the city of Albany and the way the Albany Police Department is managed. In fact, you have indicated if you are elected mayor, you're going to fire Chief Eric Hawkins. Could you elaborate?
Yes, absolutely. So, first of all, I don't think Eric Hawkins wants to stay in Albany anymore. I think that's pretty widely known. And so instead of saying I'm going to fire him, I think it was more like I would release him to do what he'd really like to do with his life, which is probably not be the police chief in Albany. I think it would be an act of kindness more than anything else. And I have been working with people in the police department and in the wider net of the capital region to have discussions and seek out who could be next. Who could be somebody who has a vision to be the people's police chief and come alongside people and also come alongside the Albany Police Force? And the issue with the conflict in the Albany Police Department, there are citizen conflicts between the residents of Albany and the police force. And largely, first of all, that conflict will always be there in some way. There's always going to be a state of tension there. But it doesn't have to be preventative to the growth of the city or the benefit of the city. What I want to see the police force do is, they are wonderful, actually, very wonderful human beings. What I'd like to see is I would like to facilitate more of that from them. But I would also like to, and I've had these conversations with the communities as well, and I've said very strongly to the police in the conversations, police leaders, I've said, can you admit that you too make mistakes? And I've said to the communities, can you admit that you also make mistakes and that none of us are perfect and we're all judging each other for our mistakes? Can we come together and have a conversation that says, I will admit where I was wrong, like you would with your brother or sister? Your mother says, what did you do wrong? What did you do? Okay, you need to apologize. Now, it's way more complex than that. But to say that my heart is to facilitate a communication between there. And from the conversations I've had with communities across the city, diametrically different than me as a person and the police, I will tell you, it is actually possible when you have somebody who is people focused and sees people as the solution. That's the approach in everything that I do.
Could you share some of the feedback you're getting from citizens and the police officers?
So one of the things I hear the most from the police officers is they don't feel that Chief Eric Hawkins or the current mayor has their back. And the way that I'll put it is just simply to say, what happened in 2020 with the initial protests and rioting that we had, and then in 2021 with the occupation at South Station, there were a lot of losers on both sides in that, and they really felt betrayed because they felt that a mayor's facilitation should be to support the police if the police are doing their job. Now, we know the mistakes were made, so I'm putting that out there. However, on the side of the residents, what I'm hearing is the police, some of this has to do with a larger conversation of the state of the world right now with critical race theory, et cetera. Some of that does come into play in these conversations. But outside of that, in general, people feel that the Albany police specifically have become a brute squad. Remember the brute squad from The Princess Bride? He says, form a brute squad. They feel like they've become a brute squad. And some of that has to do with we're in a perpetual state of reactive policing instead of addressing problems before they get there. And I spoke at the Common Council recently, and I said, do you know the best way to manage in a crisis? You manage the crisis, you anticipate it, and then you start to manage it before it gets to the point of a crisis. And some of this is just leadership shift, but also some of it has to be a mind shift from the people as well, because we all, no matter who we are, we actually all agree we'd like to see peace in the city and we'd like to see safety. And some of that has to do with how we can facilitate that more effectively than has been done before.
Well, how would you plan on facilitating it?
So one of my jobs as I'm campaigning for mayor has been to seek out people that are respected in the communities and who are already doing good in the communities and who are already trying to bloom where they're planted, I guess I would say, and affect other people out there. That has been a difficult job because while there are many, there are a lot of little pocket communities in Albany where they all have their own individual person they look up to. And I might say, who do you suggest I talk to? And I'll get 25 names from 25 different people of who they respect. And so I've done the same thing on the police. Who's respected here? Who's a man that doesn't have a history of, say, racism in their background? Who's somebody that even the neighborhood respects? And my goal is to have conversations independently now as a candidate, and the day will come before the election where I have been working very hard on bringing those sides together to show that at the very least a conversation can begin where people are united in the fact that we want to start with reducing crime and addressing safety. And that is something that unites us all. And I'm a very common ground person. And that's where I always start. What is our common ground? Let's set aside our differences. If we have common ground, we can build on that, and then we'll expand out from there. That has been a difficult job as I'm campaigning. But what I have seen is that because it's so bad, people are willing to talk.
Program is Albany Street. It's a Sunday morning. I'm Joe Condon. We are delighted to have with us Alicia Purdy, who is the Republican and conservative candidate for mayor in the city of Albany. We're going to be back in a moment.
The historic bells of Albany City Hall return us to Albany Street, a public affairs presentation of Albany Broadcasting.
Welcome back. I'm Joe Condon on this Sunday morning. Big shout out to everybody on their way up the Northway Route 9 for breakfast at the track and for the running of the Shuvie at Saratoga. Our guest this morning is Republican and conservative candidate for mayor in the city of Albany, Alicia Purdy. And Alicia, for folks that just tuned in, tell us again why you're running for mayor of the city of Albany and why you got into politics.
So I'm running for mayor in the city of Albany because I'm a resident of the city of Albany. I, like everyone else in the city of Albany, has complained, cried out about change, made demands, etc. And then finally, I was waiting for somebody to step up and do something. And I realized that person is me. So I decided to step up and to do something because it's a lifelong dream of mine to have run for politics anyway. I was kind of moving in that direction in my personal timeline. I actually did not see it happening right now as I'm about to turn 44. I thought I would maybe be in my 50s, look a little more stately. Nope. The opportunity is now, and I really think the time is right for that. And so I switched. I'm making that shift away from journalism over into the world of politics. Very intriguing.
One of the biggest issues in the nation right now and in the city of Albany is employers forcing their employees to receive the COVID-19 vaccine or be fired. St. Peter's Healthcare, which owns St. Peter's Hospital in Albany and Memorial Hospital in Albany, says that their employees have to be vaccinated by mid-September or they're out of a job. Lots of people don't want to be vaccinated. Do you think it's right for an employer in the city of Albany to force a worker to take that medicine or be fired?
That certainly is a very complicated question. I will tell you, when it comes to a private employer, I'm very protective of the way that a private company runs their business, because what we don't want is gross government overreach into our business. And I do think that when an employer says, look, these are the rules, this is the uniform that you wear. Now, injecting something into your body is a completely different ballgame. But I do think at some point, I don't disagree that the world is maybe taking a shift that way, and we'll all are going to have to make a fundamental decision of should we stay or should we go. And if that line is in the sand and that's unions have stood up, different people have tried to do different things. But at the end of the day, I think you have to pick your battles. And if this is not a battle you want to fight and you want to move on, you have that right.
In Los Angeles, they have restated that people have to wear masks again. That happened at the beginning of this week. And there is a call for that in New York City. So far, Mayor de Blasio said no. What is your feeling about making the residents of the city of Albany going back to wearing masks again?
At this point, I agree that the answer is no. However, I am not opposed to taking a look. And I know we have had a lot of controversy in the state of New York with our very, very high COVID rates. And I want to state I absolutely take COVID very seriously. But in this moment in time, I don't think the evidence is there. However, I think we still do what we've been doing, especially as a leader when you have a lot of different people, a lot of different health conditions, a lot of different experiences, people travel. Should those numbers continue to rise and we start to experience that in the city of Albany, I'm not opposed to it. However, the evidence would really have to be there very strongly. And I don't believe that a mayor should be the exclusive person making that decision either. I don't think that's one person's job. It really would be a team effort to say, here's what we're seeing. Here's all the data. Now let's make a collective decision as leaders of what we think is best for the city. But, at the same time, I actually don't think it'll get to that point.
Now, you've indicated that you're concerned about the Restart Albany program. Could you talk about your concerns?
So my concerns with Restart Albany predominantly are that it really is something that's been repackaged that isn't really revolutionary, creative, or imaginative, with large amounts of COVID relief money, or getting the city to a place where we're fiscally healthy, where we're healthy in our infrastructure, where we've addressed many of our needs. And when you study Restart Albany, I've been a vocal critic about it because it really is a similar approach, and what has been done is not working, and that's really evident. And so that's where Operation Transform comes in, and it's got, again, that people-focused, where people are the solution, not the problem. And when I saw Restart Albany, I thought, this is still coming at it, that fundamental worldview shift. This is still coming at it where people are the problem. And how are we going to use money and create a committee, and then a subcommittee, and then a committee to the subcommittee, to continue to have these discussions that never seem to end or get anything accomplished? That, to me, is Restart Albany.
Do you have any specific suggestions for changes in Restart Albany, the way it's being handled right now?
Well, let's talk safety and policing. So that's going to be, I think, major, not only a major platform of mine, but you're going to see it across the country. People are going to continue to hammer home safety and policing. One of the dividing lines between the way safety and policing is going to be handled in Restart Albany and under current administration is going to be a slow siphoning of reallocation of police budget over to things like a public safety commission and more citizen patrol, where people are civilians, non-sworn. And then under under Operation Transform, one of the things that I foresee and envision for the Albany Police and the safety of the community of Albany is that we transform how we approach people. We transform how we approach our policing. We have some of the junkiest equipment in the entire Albany County area, just alone, let alone the state. Very outdated. There are things that can actually incorporate civilians into part of the policing approach to the city of Albany. I'm against, and I've been very vocal against, a public safety commission in Albany, but I do think there's room for public safety officers. But I disagree that they should be in enforcement of the law, where a sworn officer who really does need to be on scene, they can't be interchangeable or even co-equal. And so Operation Transform is going to have a totally different approach, where we're going to increase our budget and come alongside the Albany Police, not to militarize them, but to actually make them a better human being. They need continuing legal education. That's one of the largest gaps the Albany Police have, and we see a lot of actions from them that are a little on the ignorant side, only because they simply weren't aware of a new law or something that changed. So let's begin right there and bring them some alongside, so they can say, actually, you can't cover your badge anymore. For example, that was a hot topic in the city of Albany. You cannot cover your badge, not even in part, but the old law you could. They didn't. Some of them did not know.
Program is Albany Street. It's a Sunday morning. I'm Joe Condon. We're delighted to have with us Alicia Purdy, who is the Republican conservative candidate for mayor in the city of Albany. As you know, COVID-19 has been very tough on the restaurants in the city of Albany, especially with the elimination of the very popular alcohol to go program. How would you as mayor help the restaurants in the city of Albany get back on their financial feet?
So one of the things in Operation Transform, I just spoke last week about taxes. Sales taxes, business taxes. One of the biggest issues that small businesses have because of COVID is attracting business, attracting customers. Some of them have restrictions because of sidewalks, but Albany has been actually addressing that. One of the biggest things I want to do with small businesses, that especially restaurants in the city of Albany, is loosen some of the red tape that they've been experiencing. So some of that red tape would include things like ordinances, fines, and fees. You know what else I want to do? I have to tell you, the biggest complaint, especially in regards to COVID, is that people have taken shelter inside of restaurants, or they come into restaurants. There's a lack of quality of life in the city of Albany, that people wander in. The Gateway is an example, the Gateway Dinner, for example. When I went and talked to them. Up in
Westgate.
Yes, in Westgate Plaza. One of the issues that they said was some of the people who panhandle in the city of Albany come in and demand Sharpies to write all over their clothing or their boards. And if they're not given a Sharpie, they get very violent. And so recovering from COVID, and we've got COVID relief money coming in, one of the things I would like to do is I would like to come alongside small businesses that are established in Albany, and even attract small businesses, and provide them some of that COVID relief money to help offset some of the things that they've lost. Now, that's actually something that's already been tossed around, not just by me. It's not novel to me alone. But I want to go a step further than that. What I want to do is I want to continue to take money from COVID relief and provide small businesses things like access and freedom from, we haven't upheld our laws and ordinances in certain areas, especially with crime. What it's done, so I'm painting a broad picture because it's really not what one single thing would I do to help small businesses recover from COVID. There are 25 things, but one of the things I take umbrage with in Restart Albany is that it has a single shot approach when I think the approach needs to be a lot more comprehensive than just saying, again, here's more money for you.
Your feelings about the schools in the city of Albany. COVID-19 has been very, very hard on schools all across the United States of America. In the city of Albany, we have public schools, we have private schools, and the schools in the Albany Roman Catholic Diocese system. How do you feel these schools are being handled with the COVID-19 at-home learning, which is beginning to end? And how are they doing right now? And do you have any ideas of what you'd like to see happen in fall at the schools?
Well, I will say my two youngest children, I have 5 children total. My 2 youngest children still attend Albany City Schools, and we've experienced the gamut just like everybody else. We did online learning. And it was a deep struggle in our family. And my children are high-achieving, very smart children, and they struggled all day. My one daughter is 5 years old. She couldn't sit all day. It was like life wasn't worth living to her. She was ready to just go take a nap, which is not like her. And then when they went to in-person, when that option for in-person became available, we took the option to go in person, and they had to wear their masks, and they would complain, but we were just kind of eating the meat, spitting out the bones with the masks because they were miserable wearing their masks. Now it's getting hot outside. And so what can schools do going forward? First of all, I have to say this. The teachers in the city of Albany were outstanding through COVID. They delivered meals when we were under lockdown to all the kids in the schools. They had those Chromebooks. They were doing drive-by things. It was so wonderful to see people come together in a time of crisis, especially in Albany, and the teachers in Albany that we've experienced are loving, caring, passionate teachers for their children. And they suffer when they see kids suffering. And I feel that for them. So what will it look like next year? I've had some conversations where it looks like we may or may not have masks next year. And you know what? I'm going to tell you, if my kids have to wear masks, I actually don't think that it's going to be necessary. But if they have to, my kids are going to stay in the Albany City School District because, first of all, we love the Albany City School District. And what hit people really hard, and I'll say this also with distance learning, one of the things that we saw my daughters in kindergarten, we saw things you saw make national news, parents struggling in the background, anger, children getting yelled at, people with high tension. And my daughters were very upset to see kind of how their friends were living at home. It's not a workable solution. It was a stopgap. It didn't really work in terms of advancing education. And I don't think we'll come to a shutdown again. But should we get to a point where we have to go to distance learning, I can only say we have to support our teachers because they really did do their best. I saw it with my own eyes. My heart went out to them.
Alicia Purdy, Republican conservative candidate for mayor in the city of Albany. Thank you so much for joining us on Albany Broadcasting this morning. And if folks want to get in contact with you, how can they reach you, Alicia Purdy?
Yes, we're always looking for volunteers and help and support. So my website is www.aliciapurdy4, the number 4, aliciapurdy4mayor.com.
I'm Joe Condon, and Alicia and I are headed up to Saratoga now. And let's hope our horses win.